Hey, what is up out there, survivors, and welcome back to Let's Survive. This is our first review in a very long time, and also the first review of 2021. It's also the first review for anything from my new PlayStation 5. So yeah, the game that I'm going to be reviewing today is very much kind of one of the most well-known or biggest releases of the PlayStation 5's launch. Not necessarily marred by the fact that it's also released on the PlayStation 4, but definitely from what I've seen, the PS5 version is the definitive version. That's right, today we're reviewing Spider-Man Miles Morales, but we're also, as a whole, we're reviewing Spider-Man Ultimate Edition. So, in other words, it's Spider-Man Miles Morales, and it also comes with Spider-Man 2018 Remastered. So yeah, first of all, I'm going to kind of just talk briefly about Spider-Man 2018 Remastered before we get into Miles Morales, because that's the order that I played them in. Spider-Man 2018 Remastered is obviously exactly what it says in the tin. It's a remaster of the 2018 game from Insomniac. I absolutely loved Spider-Man 2018, so any chance to go back and play in that sandbox again makes me very happy. If you're the type of person that you want to be able to carry your saves over from the PS4 game, then this version is probably not going to suit you, because it isn't basically an entirely new standalone entry, so you can't actually carry your saves over and stuff. So if you've done everything that there was to do in the original Spider-Man 2018, you probably don't need this version. I hadn't done near enough, because when Spider-Man 2018 came out, I basically played the main campaign and kind of left it at that. I didn't get any of the DLCs, which obviously the DLCs come bundled with this version, which is great because I finally had a chance to play those, and I'll get to those in a little bit, but yeah. So Spider-Man 2018 is the story of Peter Parker, who has been Spider-Man for around a decade. He has, already gone through all the stuff that we know with the Spider-Man saga, so, the death of Uncle Ben, he's encountered his villains. I mean, the game literally opens with you fighting the Kingpin, and putting him away, sending him away to the raft, so that we can introduce some new villains. We get to meet some familiar faces. We get to see how those characters change throughout the journey. Also, Peter and Mary Jane played in this game fantastically by Laura Bailey, which I really realised on this replay how good she is as MJ. Peter and Mary Jane have broken up, and in this game we kind of get to see them reconnect a little bit. Aunt May is also in the game. Miles Morales, who we will get to that in a while and talk about Miles Morales himself in his own standalone entry. But yeah, Spider-Man 2018 was always a great game. It echoed some of the best elements of games like Ultimate Spider-Man on the PS2 and Spider-Man 2, the movie game on the PS2, which is up to the release of Spider-Man 2018 was the best Spider-Man game that had been released. In terms of new content, there isn't really anything new. The main addition is one that really split the fan base, which is they changed Peter Parker's character model, and to my mind made him look a little bit more like Tom Holland in the movies. But I can't say that I'm a huge fan of the redesign. I'm also not massively against it. I've seen people lose their minds over this redesign. To me, it was fine. It suits the more realistic look of the PS5, Miles Morales and stuff. So, although it is interesting that no other characters got redesigned. So again, I wonder if there's any kind of licensing issue there, or I don't know. But there seems to be there's got to be a reason for why they basically redesigned Peter Parker explicitly. Gameplay wise, you swing around the city, you beat up guys. It's got a kind of a similar combat system to like the Arkham games. And obviously Spider-Man Miles Morales follows a lot of these traits, which we'll get to. But for now, Spider-Man Ultimate, I'll kind of wrap it up in a little bow by saying that if you've never played Spider-Man 2018, or if you did, but like me, you just belted through the story and didn't kind of stop to take in New York and go off and kind of do all the side missions, then Spider-Man 2018 Remastered is a great way to play that game, especially because it has, performance mode, it has Fidelity Mode, and it has Performance RT Mode. So just a little bit about these, and these also apply to Miles Morales. Performance Mode is the game running at 60 frames a second with very kind of downscaled graphics. It doesn't have any ray tracing. It doesn't have, the reflections in the windows and things like that. And really, when you jump between the two, you will spot a big difference between Spider-Man 2018 in performance mode and in fidelity mode. Fidelity mode is gorgeous because it is, of course, the game running, in full 4K with ray tracing and everything. But it's locked at 30 frames a second. And for me, I've just hit a point where I can't play games at 30 frames a second anymore. I just find it, especially in a game like Spider-Man, which relies on split-second timings, I find it so awkward. So I was really happy when they added in the Performance RT mode, which is performance with ray tracing. So you do get the beautiful ray tracing. It doesn't look quite as good as in Fidelity Mode, but it looks really damn good all the same. So yeah, I generally played the majority of both games in Performance RT mode to kind of get the best of both worlds. There's loads of suits to unlock in both games, but in Spider-Man Ultimate, some of the standouts are stuff like Peter Parker's Into the Spider-Verse costume, which looks great. But there's a much better one in Miles Morales, and we'll get to that. And yeah, loads. I mean, if you're a fan of Scarlet Spider or, you know, Iron Spider, there's and then they've got like loads of the ones from the movie. So we've got like his Spider-Man 2 Tobey Maguire outfit. We've got the Amazing Spider-Man costume as well. So yeah, like there's loads of costumes, there's loads of bonus content, there's loads to kind of swing around the city and find and do. But yeah, just as I said, to sum it all up, if you've already played this on the PS4, the remaster isn't going to really do a whole heap for you. Now, let's swing right into Miles Morales. So Spider-Man Miles Morales takes up kind of, it seems like a couple of months after the first game. We never get a kind of real hard definitive answer, but I think it seems to be a few months after the event of the original game. Miles Morales, who was bitten by a radioactive spider, or a bioengineered spider in the first game, is kind of getting to grips with his powers, and he has Peter Parker as his mentor, showing him, you know, how to be Spider-Man. One of the things that does jar me about this game is the idea of two Spider-Men existing in one New York. And the reason for that is, like, for example, whenever Peter and Miles are swinging through the city doing stuff in the intro to the game and stuff, they're calling each other Miles and Peter. So to anyone within earshot, they've heard them call each other by their first names, which to me doesn't seem very Spider-Man. It's weird that there isn't a distinction between them in their names. I understand that in the comics, Miles Morales was a kind of an alternate universe Spider-Man, so I find it weird that we have these two Spider-Men but no real distinction. They're both just Spider-Man. Now that becomes a recurring theme of the narrative, which is, and I think it was the same in Spider-Verse, which is anyone can be Spider-Man behind the mask, and I get that. But it is just a little bit jarring. But anyway, Spider-Man goes on vacation with MJ. Not really, it seems to be a working vacation with the Daily Bugle. They're going to Symkaria to investigate some awful war that's going on. So it doesn't seem like a great vacation. But while he's gone, he kind of leaves Miles in charge and kind of to embrace his powers and get, you know, kind of grow alone. He does leave some training simulations from around the city, which is one of your side quests in this game. You can run around and do the training sims. But yeah, what Miles finds is that right out the gate, he encounters a new group called the Underground, who are trying to stop a massive corporation called Roxxon from, you know, releasing this awful new energy source called New Form into the world. Also, they're led by this new villain called the Tinkerer. So Miles finds himself up against this new enemy, you know, this new villain in the Tinkerer. He still has some of Spider-Man's old villains to contend with, so Rhino shows up in the game, among many others. I mean, Rhino, it's not a spoiler, Rhino literally shows up in the opening of the game, but yeah, the villains of the piece really are the Underground and also Roxxon, who are shady as all hell with this new farm thing and what they're trying to do. There's something about Spider-Man that he seems to always be fighting big corporations. I don't know whether that's a play on the whole kind of middle class versus upper class, or big pharmaceutical or something, I don't know, but he's always up against Oscorp, or in this game Roxxon. So yeah, so Miles doesn't play like Peter, which is awesome. Like he feels more inexperienced, he feels a little bit weaker, a little bit sad. Like, even though Miles is actually technically a stronger Spider-Man by virtue of the fact that he is a bioengineered Spider-Man, so he has bioelectric powers and stuff, still feels like he's a kid, not really assured of himself like Peter was in the first game with a decade's experience behind him. Even the way he swings through the city just looks that little bit more unrefined compared to Peter Parker, which again I love. I really do love this. I like that it creates this distinction that makes you feel like Miles is just discovering who he really is, and it really ties into the tagline of the game, which is "Be greater, be yourself." I'm a huge fan of the Miles Morales suit. I always have been. I love Miles Morales. I love Miles Morales' Black Spider-Man costume. I think it's amazing. I also love that Miles seems to be the Spider-Man of Harlem, you know, the way we hear of, you know, the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Well, where Peter's neighborhood was Queens, Miles is definitely Harlem, and even though you travel all over New York in the game, Harlem is what he's out to protect, which I like. That does make me kind of excited about where they can go with this series, because I like the idea of these different Spider-Man characters having their own districts or their own areas that they kind of patrol and protect. In terms of gameplay, it's not usually different from the 2018 game. As I say, Miles definitely feels a little bit like, compared to Peter, who has like, I think 12 gadgets at his disposal by the end of the first game. Miles has 4 for the duration of the entire game. But he also has Venom Powers, which are so freaking cool. Venom Powers are these big ass electric attacks that you can do that can just absolutely wreck enemies. He also has the ability to go camouflage. If you've seen the Into the Spider-Verse movie, you'll know that these are some of his powers: the electricity, the going camouflage. I've been a huge fan of the character since the first comic releases of Miles Morales, which there was a lot of controversy at the time. He seems to have been really embraced by the community now, and people seem to love Miles, but I do remember that at the time there was a lot of nonsense of people not liking him for very silly reasons. But I've always loved the character, so yeah, it is cool. I do also like that he's kind of in the shadow of the real Spider-Man. Like, when he goes to certain people to help them, they're like, oh, it's you. I was hoping it would be the real Spider-Man. Which, you know, really... Also, I wonder if people realised in the universe that, like, oh, Peter Parker's gone on vacation and the real Spider-Man is gone. What's that about? Probably not. People have their own problems to be dealing with in New York that they probably didn't notice that. But yeah, it's just something that I kind of just realised there, actually. In terms of the gameplay, as I say, it's very much reminiscent of the 2018 game. You swing around the city, there's side quests, there's side missions. There's a new Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man app, which you can use to find kind of new side quests. And I really hope to keep that in the next Insomniac mainline Spider-Man game. Spider-Man 2, I presume, whenever it comes out. But yeah, what I will say is I've heard a lot of people talk about the length and say that this is a side game or a spin-off, or that it's just glorified DLC, and why are they charging $60 for it? I mean, in terms of the main story is relatively short. I'm not even going to pretend. When it actually hit its climax, I was a little bit shocked. The pacing felt a little bit off. I felt the same about the 2018 game, though, because what I felt with the 2018 game was we didn't really meet many of the villains, and then literally in the last act it was just like villain after villain after villain after villain, and I kind of felt like that took away from it. I would have liked the villains to have been broken up throughout the game. And here it's kind of similar. It just kind of ramps up in this big crazy third act where everything happens all of a sudden. But yeah, it's still really fun story-wise and stuff, and I do like the type of story that's trying to tell. But yeah, what I will say is that beyond the main story, there's loads to do. So like the first game, you'd still get, I think I'm about, like, I've finished it and I've been playing it for about 25 hours, and there's still another 10-15 hours between New Game Plus and all the extra stuff that I can get. And it's a game that I really want 100%, like I did with Spider-Man 2018. When I played the remastered version. And I will say, if you paid $60 for it, I still think you'd get enough out of it. But it'll probably go on sale soon as well, so I'm not gonna, like, what I'll say is that if you are hesitant about it, if you are like, ooh, it sounds like it could be short, wait, it'll probably go down in price, as it is a launch title. But yeah, I really dug Spider-Man Miles Morales. I don't know, I've seen a lot of people tell me it's better than Spider-Man 2018. Having just played both games back to back, I don't know if I'd agree. I think there are some enhanced gameplay stuff, which always happens with the next iteration of a game in Spider-Man Miles Morales. But I still feel like the first game felt like like Spider-Man 2018 felt like a more well-rounded product overall. But in saying that, Miles Morales is a great game that gives a lot of chance for growth. So I guess I'm going to kind of drop my review score here. I'm going to award Spider-Man Miles Morales as a standalone with a very respectable score of 7.5 out of 10. I do think there's a couple of things that let the game down. Like, as I say, the campaign length, the pacing of the campaign. I do think there's also great strides made in this game. Now, if you're going to buy the Ultimate Edition, as I say, if you're one of those people like me who hadn't really given Spider-Man 2018 their all, then I would say, like, for me, the overall Ultimate Edition gets a 9.5 because there's two incredibly good games here at its core. And yeah, you're going to get so much amazing content out of this. I really think that of the launch games that I've gotten a handful. I've gotten like Devil May Cry 5 Ultimate Edition, which is again the kind of remaster of the PS4 game. But I got Demon's Souls, which I'm also loving. We'll get to that when I finally complete it. I'll do a review. But yeah, Spider-Man Miles Morales is probably for me one of the, especially the Ultimate Edition, is one of the standout experiences you can have on the PS5 right now, especially in performance RT mode. And if you don't care about frame rate, go fidelity all the way. But frame rate for me is one of those things that's just a stickler. But that's kind of it, guys. I'm going to finish out the review here by just saying how much I enjoyed my time with Spider-Man Miles Morales and Spider-Man 2018 Remastered. Please make sure to head down and check the links below to follow Insomniac on Twitter and keep up to date with what's happening with the Spider-Man games universe moving forward. And yeah, get involved in the comments if you have played Spider-Man Miles Morales. Let me know what you thought of it. Did you play it on PS4 or PS5? Did you play it on both? Did you notice any major differences? Would love to hear your input on the game as well. As I say, for me, I really enjoyed it, but I totally would understand the reasons why somebody might not. But yeah, I also want to just say thank you so much for checking out this first review of 2021. I'm going to wish you all a belated Happy New Year for whenever this video gets released. It's probably been quite a while since New Year's, but anyway, it doesn't matter. We're into a fresh year, fresh eyes. Let's tackle this year head on and do everything we can to make it as awesome as it can be, in spite of everything that the universe is throwing at us. And guys, yeah, thank you so much. Please like and subscribe. It really helps me out. I'm so amazed and happy and thankful with how the channel is growing. Get involved in the Discord below. And yeah, I'm just going to shut up. I'm rambling now. I'm just going to say, let's survive together and peace out. Thanks so much, guys.